If you replay conversations in your head hours after they happen, psychologists say your brain processes social interaction differently than most people. Not broken, not damaged, not wrong, different. Because the average person doesn't mentally revisit their conversations at all. They'll lose the details within an hour, sometimes faster. But you hold on to every word. You replay how they said it. You analyze their posture, the look in their eyes, those loaded silences. You hunt for meaning in both what they said and what they left unsaid. And someone probably told you this makes you paranoid, that you need to just drop it, that you're reading too much into things. Here's what the research actually shows. Conversation replay isn't chaos. It isn't dysfunction. It's systematic. It's purposeful. It runs on cognitive principles, and it signals a collection of mental and emotional capacities that exist in less than 1 in 5 people. If you find yourself replaying conversations repeatedly, picking apart every moment, you probably have several of these 7 rare psychological traits. If you've spent years thinking something's wrong with you, these 7 traits will prove otherwise. Let's get into it. Trait number 1, extreme social radar. When you replay conversations, your brain is hardwired to detect social signals that fly completely under most people's radar. This goes way beyond just paying attention. You're operating with a level of social detection that borders on overwhelming. Where others hear words and move on, you're simultaneously tracking vocal shifts, fleeting facial movements, split-second hesitations, specific word selections, and the emotional current running underneath everything. Your mind processes on multiple channels at once. And critically, this processing doesn't end when they walk away. Your brain keeps working because the analysis isn't complete. This replay, it's not compulsion. It's how your mind finishes what it started. Psychologists call this heightened social surveillance. The research shows something fascinating. People with this ability usually developed it in environments where accurately reading others meant survival, emotional or physical. Maybe you learned to decode a caregiver's mood before opening your mouth. Maybe you figured out early that words and intentions don't always match. Maybe you realized that missing subtle warnings could spark conflict or loss. Your brain evolved. It became razor sharp at decoding what people don't say out loud. And today, even when you're completely safe, it continues running that same program. Scan, interpret, anticipate. That's why you'll replay a work conversation and realize 6 hours later that their tiny pause before saying, "sure," actually meant, "I completely disagree but won't say it." Or why you can sense someone's distress when they swear everything's fine. You're not inventing this. You're processing information most brains filter out as noise. This level of social detection is genuinely rare. Research shows only 15 to 20% of people have this enhanced sensitivity. Yes, it can feel like a burden, but you understand human behavior at depths most never reach. You sense when someone needs help before they ask. You spot manipulation and dishonesty others miss completely. Your brain replays conversations because it's extraordinary at decoding people. That's not weakness, that's power. Trait number 2, intense emotional depth. People who replay conversations don't just remember what happened, they re-experience the emotional impact. Long after someone speaks their last word, the feeling stays with you, and your mind keeps circling back because it's processing not just information, but emotional meaning. Most people feel something in the moment, then move forward. Your system works differently. Your emotional processing runs several layers deeper. You feel things for longer periods, with more intensity, with more complexity. When someone says something that stings even slightly, your brain doesn't file it away and forget. It examines it, dissects it, tries to understand the pain. Psychologists call this emotional profundity, and it connects to something called sensory processing sensitivity. People with this trait, known as highly sensitive persons or HSPs, represent about 20% of the population. They process emotional experiences more completely than others. If conversation replay describes you, you're likely in this group. You don't just register words, you feel the emotional truth behind them. You detect what someone's holding back. You catch disappointment, anger, or hurt, even when it's wrapped in polite phrases. And because you process emotions so thoroughly, you can't just scroll past a conversation like others do. Your brain requires real time to integrate what occurred, what it meant emotionally, and what it reveals. The replay is your processing mechanism. This exhausts you sometimes. You wonder why you can't release things like everyone else appears to. Why one throwaway comment haunts you for days. Why you're still unpacking a conversation from last month. But here's the real translation. You experience emotional reality at an intensity most people never access. You're capable of empathy that cuts to the bone, connections that transform both people, and emotional awareness that others don't possess the equipment for. You don't just hear what people say, you feel what they mean. That's genuinely uncommon. Sure, it comes with a cost, but it also means you're capable of relationship depth, emotional insight, and human understanding that most people will spend their entire lives never touching. Your intensity isn't your enemy, it's your superpower. Trait number 3, pattern detection and future mapping. When you replay conversations, your brain isn't stuck in the past. It's trying to map the future. You're not fixating on old dialogue because you're stuck. You're analyzing behavioral patterns, searching for signals, and preparing for what comes next. This is called predictive social modeling, and it's a cognitive trait that emerges in people whose brains are wired to forecast outcomes using subtle data. Translation: your mind constantly tries to predict what people will think, feel, or do based on what they've already shown you. While replaying a conversation, you're asking questions like, what did that edge in their voice mean? Were they telling the truth? Did I cross a line? Are they angry at me? How will they act next time we talk? These aren't irrational anxieties. They're probability calculations your brain is running. And it does this because at some point in your history, being able to predict people's behavior meant staying safe, avoiding conflict, or navigating emotional minefields. The research reveals something important. People who grew up in unstable environments, where emotions shifted without warning, or where they had to manage other people's feelings, typically develop this trait. Their brains learned that predicting what's coming could prevent damage, so they became exceptional at reading patterns in behavior, speech, and tone. Even now, in genuinely safe situations, your brain runs this same protocol. It replays conversations not to punish you, but to extract intelligence. It's hunting for patterns. It's trying to predict someone's next move so you can prepare, adjust, or defend yourself. That's why you might replay a 10-second exchange with someone close and think, something felt off. Are they distancing themselves? Did I mess up? Your brain is comparing patterns. It's matching this interaction against previous ones and highlighting discrepancies. And here's what matters. You're right more often than not. When your gut tells you something's wrong or someone's upset or a relationship is changing, you're usually correct because your brain has been gathering evidence that others don't even register exists. This level of predictive thinking is unusual. Most people don't dissect social interactions this way. They react as things unfold. You're constantly running simulations, preparing responses, building strategies. It drains your mental energy, absolutely, but it also makes you remarkably perceptive and ready for whatever comes. You're not overthinking. You're thinking strategically. That's a rare skill. Trait number 4, deep self-examination. People who replay conversations are typically intensely self-reflective. You don't just think about their words, you dissect your own. How you said things, whether you came across clearly, whether you should have chosen different words. This is metacognitive awareness, essentially meaning you think about how you think. And it's far less common than you'd imagine. Most people move through life without seriously examining their behavior or communication style. You do it constantly. When you replay a conversation, you're partly evaluating yourself. Did I sound ridiculous? Did I dominate the conversation? Did I seem awkward? Should I have phrased that differently? This can feel like beating yourself up, and sometimes that's exactly what it is. But it's also growth in action. You're someone who genuinely cares about your impact on others. You want to communicate clearly, connect authentically, and be truly understood. Because of that, you examine your interactions at a level most people never approach. Psychology research shows that strong self-awareness correlates with emotional intelligence, empathy, and personal evolution. People who regularly analyze their behavior learn from mistakes faster and build stronger relationships. But this trait has a dark side. When self-examination becomes self-attack, it turns toxic. You replay a conversation not to learn, but to punish yourself. You fixate on every awkward gap, every imperfect word choice, every moment you wish you could erase. If that hits home, here's what you need to understand. Your self-awareness is strength, but it needs self-compassion as a counterbalance. The fact that you care this much about how you communicate and your impact on others, that's beautiful. Most people never consider these questions. Yes, you'll stumble. Yes, you'll say things you regret. But the fact that you notice, that you care, that you reflect, that's what enables genuine, transformative growth. That's uncommon and valuable. You're not harsh on yourself because something's wrong with you. You hold yourself to high standards because you care deeply, and that matters tremendously. Trait number 5, survival-based vigilance. Here's where we go deeper. If you replay conversations compulsively, especially focusing on what might have gone wrong, what someone might have really meant, or how you might have been judged, there's a strong probability this behavior traces back to earlier emotional experiences. Psychology has a specific term, hypervigilance. It describes a state where your nervous system constantly scans for danger, even when you're completely safe. And for many people who replay conversations, this hypervigilance developed as a protective adaptation to childhood emotional unavailability, inconsistent caregiving, criticism, or relationship trauma. If you grew up needing to constantly monitor other people's emotional states, where acceptance felt uncertain, or where you faced criticism or misunderstanding, your brain learned that replaying interactions equals protection. It learned to ask, did I mess up? Are they angry? Am I safe in this relationship? What do I need to do to avoid conflict or abandonment? Even now, years later, your brain still runs that protective protocol. It replays conversations not because you're overthinking, it's trying to ensure your safety. It's scanning for threat signals, rejection signs, or emotional withdrawal. It's doing exactly what it was trained to do. And this is crucial to grasp. This isn't your fault. You're not defective. Your brain adapted to survive in an environment where reading people and predicting reactions was necessary. That adaptation helped you. It kept you safe. But now, in healthier environments, it can feel restrictive. The good news? This pattern is healable. Once you understand that your conversation replay habit stems from a nervous system adaptation, not a character flaw, you can start working with it differently. You can begin noticing when you're replaying from fear versus genuine analysis. You can start reassuring the part of your brain still trying to protect you that you're actually safe now. This won't make the replaying vanish overnight, but it means you can approach it with understanding instead of self-judgment. You're not overthinking because you're anxious or broken. You're doing it because your brain learned that constant vigilance meant survival. That's not weakness. That's adaptation. And now with awareness, the healing can begin. Trait number 6, superior language memory. If you replay conversations, you likely have unusually strong memory for spoken words. You don't just remember the general idea of what someone said, you remember their exact phrasing, sometimes word for word, weeks or months later. This is high verbal working memory, and it's a cognitive trait that only a subset of people possess. Most people retain the basic concept of a conversation, but lose the specific language. You don't. You hold on to the precise wording, the vocal tone, the pauses, the emphasis patterns. This can feel like a burden. You might wish you could forget certain conversations, especially painful ones. But your brain retains this information because it's designed to process language intensely. You're not replaying conversations because you're obsessive. You're replaying them because your memory system is remarkably powerful. Here's what this looks like in real life. You can recall a criticism your boss gave you 3 months ago, word for word, including the exact phrase they used. You remember not just that a friend said they'd help you move, but that they said, "I'll totally be there." And when they weren't, that specific phrase haunts you. You can quote back what someone said in an argument from weeks ago, which sometimes makes people uncomfortable because they don't remember saying it at all. This precision can make you seem like you're holding grudges, when really, you just can't forget. Research shows people with strong verbal memory often excel in fields requiring precise communication, narrative craft, written expression, or interpersonal insight. Your ability to recall conversations verbatim gives you advantages in understanding people, resolving conflicts, and spotting inconsistencies. But it also means you carry heavier emotional weight because you remember not just what was said, but how it felt hearing it. And that can drain you. If this describes you, know that your memory isn't a curse, it's a gift. You're capable of retaining and understanding information that most people lose within hours. That's genuinely rare. Trait number 7, the need for relationship clarity. Here's the final trait, and it might be the most significant. If you replay conversations, you probably have a powerful need for relationship clarity. You can't tolerate ambiguity in your connections. When something feels incomplete, vague, or uncertain, your brain refuses to let it go. You need to know where you stand with people. You need to understand their meaning, their feelings, and whether things are solid between you. This isn't about being controlling or insecure. It's about having a brain wired to seek resolution and understanding. Most people can comfortably exist in relationship gray zones. They can have a slightly weird conversation and just move forward without needing to decode it. You can't. Your brain keeps pulling you back because it's searching for clarity. It's trying to resolve the uncertainty. Psychology connects this to attachment anxiety in some cases, but it's broader than that. It's about having a brain designed to seek coherence in relationships. You need things to make sense. You want to understand the narrative of what happened and why. And when pieces don't align, when someone's words contradict their tone, when there's disconnect between what was said and what you felt, your brain goes into overdrive trying to solve it. That's why you might text a friend and then replay the entire exchange when they respond unexpectedly. Or why you can't stop thinking about a conversation that ended abruptly without closure. Your brain is seeking completion. It's trying to build a coherent story that makes sense. Until it gets that clarity, it keeps replaying, re-examining, searching for answers. This need for relationship clarity usually stems from a deep desire for authentic connection. You don't want surface-level relationships. You want genuine understanding of people and to be genuinely understood. You want honesty, transparency, and emotional coherence. That's not weakness. It shows someone who values depth and authenticity. The challenge is learning to sit with some uncertainty, accepting that not every conversation will resolve perfectly, and trusting you can be okay without having all the answers. So here's what matters. If you replay conversations in your head, you're not broken. You're not overthinking. You're not anxious, obsessive, or too sensitive. You possess a rare combination of cognitive and emotional traits that most people simply don't have. You have extreme social radar. You process emotions with unusual depth. You detect patterns others miss completely. You're deeply self-examining. You've developed survival-based vigilance. You have superior language memory, and you need relationship clarity. These traits didn't appear randomly. They developed because at some point they helped you survive, adapt, or protect yourself. And now, even when you don't need them the same way, they remain part of how you interpret the world. The goal isn't eliminating conversation replay entirely. The goal is understanding why it happens and working with your brain instead of fighting it. Give yourself permission to analyze when it's useful, but also permission to release when it's not. Remind yourself that not every conversation hides secret meaning. Not every interaction needs deep analysis, and not every silence signals rejection. You're rare, you're perceptive, you're deep, and the world desperately needs people like you. People who think carefully, feel deeply, notice subtly, and care genuinely. So next time you catch yourself replaying a conversation, ask, is my brain trying to protect me? Is it detecting patterns? Is it processing emotions? Or is it just doing what it does brilliantly, analyzing with precision? Then, with compassion, decide whether to keep analyzing or let it go. You're not overthinking. You're thinking with depth and purpose. That's not a flaw. That's your superpower. Which of these 7 traits hit home for you? Drop a comment below. And if this video made you feel seen, understood, or validated, hit subscribe. There's much more like this coming. And please always remember, you're not broken. You're deep.